Welcome to the lesson on loading your starting accounts receivable. I'm currently at the JobMaster Pro main menu and I'm going to click into the Customer Center screen. Now before we can load accounts receivable, obviously we need to have our customers entered in here, and the general rule of thumb is to enter the customers who owe you money first and then start building the rest of your customer list. So I'm going to find the customer that I just entered previously, and I'm going to enter some starting accounts receivable. Now, how this works is that before we can load the starting accounts receivable, we need to have jobs already on file for the customer to attach those invoices to. So I'm going to go into the Jobs button for the job setup window, and I'm going to enter a job just for the purpose of loading the starting accounts receivable. Okay, so just as a demonstration here, I'm going to just enter a job for that specific purpose. So if you don't have jobs set up already and you're not concerned about setting up historical information, say for contract jobs, your ongoing contract jobs or whatever, all you want to do is load your accounts receivable. This is how I would recommend doing it. In the job setup, enter a job number, or if you're on auto job numbering, just let it auto job number for you. But I'm going to enter a job number being the customer's account number as you see it above here. You don't have to do this, but it's kind of cool. Now in the job type, this is the only difference I would tell you, is to put a job type of LR for load receivables. That way whenever you see that job type later on, you know it's related to just entering the customer's beginning balance in here. That's all I need to do. So I'm going to go down and click on the Save button, and it says the job header saved. When I exit out, it opens up the options menu at this point, and all I want to do is go to another customer, select another customer for example, and do the same thing, set up a new job for another customer. So I can use these two setup screens round and round and round. Now, once my customers are set up with their initial load jobs, in the Customer Center I'm going to go up to Action and then select Load Starting Accounts Receivable. Now this is why we needed to have those job numbers set up already, because here we can either enter or find that job number and double click on it so that it's brought out on the main screen here. Now as I press enter through the fields, the job date, that can be changed to represent the date the job was started, or you can just press enter here now. In the billing status, this is kind of important, because if there's only one invoice against that job, or you're just using the same job to load all of your invoices, it's important how you might use these status fields. So if I'm just loading all my invoices against this one job, it really doesn't matter what status I have on the job. But normally, if this job only has one invoice and I'm entering that invoice at this point, I can say that this is the final bill on the job, so by putting an F in the billing status, and when I press enter, I would put a C in the job status, which means that job is officially closed. Otherwise, if I'm entering this to a real job that is still ongoing, I would not put an F in the billing status and a C in the job status. I would just press enter through them. Now as I press enter from job status, I'm brought down to the invoice number, where you enter your physical invoice number. And then you want to enter the date of that invoice. It's remembering the last date that I entered, which is why you're seeing that funny date there. But you want to enter the invoice date. Now what I did was, using just my keyboard, I typed in the month, I used my right arrow to get over to the day, and I typed in the day, and I used my right arrow to get over to the year. So instead of having to pick up my mouse or use my calendar lookup or all that, that's how you can get that in there real quickly. When I press enter on the invoice date, I'm brought down to the description, and I would suggest using the default that shows up that says original invoice load. I would leave that there as a visual indicator that this is being loaded through this screen rather than actually processed through the normal COBRA billing cycle. I'll press enter, and then I get down to my amount fields. So right now I will enter the total invoice amount including tax, 106.50 for the whole amount of the invoice. Now how much of it is the actual open balance or left to pay on it less tax? That's how much you put in the open balance. And then in the open sales tax, this is how much of the invoice amount is tax amount. So these have to add up, obviously. So COBRA won't let you save this amount unless these three fields add up. Now the retainage amount, if this is an actual job that has retainage being withheld, you can tell COBRA how much of the open invoice is actually retained balance or open retainage. So 10% of say $100 would be $10. So I can enter that in there. And then as I press enter, I'm brought down to the save button where I will hit enter, and that invoice is now saved and it is on file. I could continue entering then against the same job or different jobs the invoices for this customer, the open invoices. So once I exit this window, I can do another customer and continue the process for each customer with open balances. But now you can see that that invoice is part of your accounts receivable now, but there has been no accounting records generated for that, and that's why the load is so nice, because you don't have to process each invoice through the system, and we're not generating any accounting records because the accounting records for these invoices should have been accounted for in a prior program. So we don't want to duplicate the accounting in this program, which is cool. Now the invoice also shows up on your aging reports. It also shows up in your invoices tab, so if I wanted to take a look at it, I could click on it. I could view the invoice on screen, or I could print it out. All of those things that you can normally do in these tabs here. So in the end, what you want is their AR balance to equal what it was in your existing program. Now to continue this process, we can exit the Customer Center screen and go into the AR Center screen, and under Reports then, AR Aging Report, what we want to do essentially is match the aging off of a prior system. So you can print these different reports or view them on screen to see what your aging is for all of your customers. The detail one shows obviously customer by customer each individual invoice, which is really cool. But if you want to just zip to the last page to get a total overall aging, this is what should match your system that we're trying to match up to. So this is a good way of getting those invoices loaded into your accounts receivable. This ends the lesson on loading your starting accounts receivable.